So another question that we get, and I think it's a good opportunity to explain, what we do behind the scenes, and that's sort of what we're trying to do. Is there's a lot of things that we do as a company that people don't realize we're doing for them, and we get, well, why do you charge a maintenance coordination fee? And I think that there's a couple ways. Is every time a tenant calls, we don't just send a tech out.
Correct.
It goes through a whole process.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And we have. And talk a little bit about your staff, and how many people are handling this, and
So in terms of maintenance calls, service requests that we get from tenants, we have 3 full-time staff members where all they do is communicate with the tenant and communicate with some of our vendors, and they're just trying to coordinate service requests. And so their job is to collect the information, make sure that it's a clear, concise issue, not, there's something wrong in my house. It's, well, what is it? What can I get a picture? And then there's a back and forth troubleshooting process.
Is it a want or a
Correct,
need?
Right. Is it a want or a need? And so we are making an effort to determine exactly what needs to be done for several reasons. First and foremost is, well, if we're going to fix anything, we got to know what we're dealing with. Number one. Number two, we are trying to determine if it's something that the tenant should be able to do on their own. And so, for example, my furnace didn't turn on. Okay, well, you send me a picture of the thermostat. Well, it's not turned to heat. We went from cold, and now it needs to be turned to heat. Okay, furnace is working. Great.
Sure. Diffusers, bi-levels.
Correct.
It's really cold in the basement and super hot upstairs. They don't understand diffusers or,
change. Yes, you've got to change the airflow in your home. And so we're doing that. I was looking today.
And how much do we charge for an owner to do that?
We don't charge any money to do that. $0.
One more question, though. Yes. Before we get too far.
Okay.
You figured this out before, and we track it. What is the average amount of communications back and forth per work order?
I should have looked at that, but it was 8 messages. I think it was an average.
I thought it was 9.
Okay,
but anyways,
it was an average of 8 back and forths between our staff and a tenant before we on every work order, every request that we got.
Because people ask me, why do you need 3 staff, to
correct.
do that? It's a tremendous amount of going back and forth, making sure we have all the data we need, the photos, not only that, and then following up, scheduling, following up to make sure it was handled appropriately. Correct. Are they happy? All that kind of stuff. And that's just an average. I've seen 20, 25 messages back and forth,
True. Very true.
But
those are just coordinators. That doesn't include the dispatcher. I'm not even including the person that takes the call and makes additional phone calls with the tenant to assess what time. To set the schedule. To say, hey, what, are you available on this date and this time? Right. So that doesn't even include that person. I just looking, we keep track of these stats. We've had 24 work orders that we were able to get the tenant to fix in the last 13 weeks. We have a 13-week rolling scorecard, and so that's a lot. At $125, minimum charge to go out there, that's a lot of money that we're saving by getting tenants to address common maintenance issues on their own.
Yeah, because there's something, and people are like, well, I don't want my tenant fixing stuff. Well, what we're talking about is pretty basic stuff. Maybe, the thing that I remember is you mentioned the furnace ain't working. Well, it's not turned to heat, or the batteries in the thermostat are out. Correct. Or, my kitchen outlets aren't working. I checked the breaker box, everyththing's fine. And you talked about this. Would you say you had 64 different templates that show like videos or maybe some email template to describe on how to do stuff, to how to check a GFCI. So we're not sending a tech, let alone an electrician out there thinking we have a major issue, and and it's something. Oh, you just got to hit the little button because you had your microwave coffee maker and your food processor all running at the same time,
and you're ironing in your kitchen too.
Exactly.
So there's that. I mean, that's one reason. Obviously, it's just so that there's zero cost to the owner. We work hard at that. We also work hard at trying to identify what is exactly going on so that we can send the right person there. Okay.
Right.
There are situations where there are some HVAC things that our technicians are more than capable of handling. Some they're not. And so if we can identify get a better understanding of what the problem actually is, then we can send the correct person out there, and it's one trip, less money, right?
Yep.
Rather than send
nothing worse than sending the wrong person out there to saying this is beyond me,
correct.
And people ask, well, what, our techs try to do that smaller stuff. Like you said, maybe it's I don't remember the,
flame sensor.
Thank you. Yeah. So, something like that. It's something I don't need an HVAC guy to go out there to clean a flame sensor and charge me $300 or whatever, and charge my owners $300 to do that. Versus, we had a situation, can't get out of my head, where, half the outlets go out in the house, all the breakers are working, everything's fine. There's something shorted in the walls. That might be beyond what our techs are able to do. We need a specialist.
Correct.
But we have electricians, HVAC, plumbers, that have been with us quite a while that can handle that stuff. And we're trying to determine that instead of sending our tech out just to find out this is beyond.
Right.
It's not perfect,
right?
Because sometimes it seems like it should be a common thing. But I think it definitely reduces.
Correct. So those are, you would use the turn of phrase there, need or a want, right? So those are need situations. You also get tenants that have wants. Hey, I want this, I want that. I think the baseboard should be painted, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Well, one of my properties, what did they want?
They wanted the tub resurfaced.
Yeah. Tub and sink.
That's right. The tub and sink.
Yeah. I've never resurfaced the sink either, but that's what they wanted.
That's correct. And so if we're coordinating that on an existing tenant, right, we don't just send somebody out. We get the picture. We do the same thing. We get the pictures. Is it causing a problem? No. It's just a cosmetic change. We have still coordinated all that. We've still made our 8 calls. We've still asked for all the pictures. At that point, we send it to the owner, right, and say, hey, this is what your tenant wants. And if the owner says no, we close it, and we're done. Again, not a nickel is billed for that service. I meant to look. I forgot to look before we came in here, but I was looking at all of our open work orders, and we had 2 that were in the troubleshooting status, and I think I kind of counted maybe 8 to 10 where we're waiting on owner response, right? And so there's a lot of coordination happening there that we're kind of doing behind the scenes and nobody knows about, and that's
and please get back to us quickly when we put something in, so because there's nothing worse than a tenant calling and complaining and be like, we're still waiting to hear back from the owner, know. So,
but that's again just more. It is. It's staff. It's staff. It's stress on the staff. It's it takes time. It takes effort, and it takes attention to.
And the only time they're actually getting charged is when there is an actual work order. So to charge, and a lot of times it's a pretty small fee.
Correct.
It's a percentage, because even on big ticket items, we don't charge on that kind of stuff. But it's usually the smaller ticket items, and it's a lot of overhead, to provide that kind of service. It'd be a lot easier, and some PMs do this. They get a call, they send somebody. Get a call, send somebody. It'd be much cheaper for us to do that, probably much more profitable. But as I think a lot of people know, is all of my properties are managed here. Your properties are managed here that you have. We have other employees, their properties are managed here. Everybody that has rental properties is managed through us. How do we want our property treated? How, and we always, I've heard you say it, and I say it all the time, is, we treat the owner's money just like it was our money.
Correct.
And not that, hey, but like, how would we want our, stuff? And everything's treated the same. It doesn't, and you can, be honest on this. Does my properties or anybody's properties get special treatment?
No.
If anything, I get less.
You get worse treatment. Yeah, I'll tell you right now. Yeah, so you're at the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. I was literally going to say that when we want to try something new or experimental,
I'm always the guinea pig.
Yeah, like Brad.
Just try to one on Brad's property and see what happens.
I really think chartreuse paint is going to go well. Brad, we're doing your whole property. No. But
a neon door.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
It's true.
But like when we get busy, sometimes my turns get pushed. It got pushed a little bit this year, But back to the original point is that's the way we look at this.
Of course.
And I don't think and I can't say all PMs, but I don't think a lot of them look at it that way. And I think they're just like, get this off my plate, get somebody out there. I just need a handyman to go look at it. And then they'll go out there and you're getting charged and there was no reason to be charged.
Yeah.
The tenant could have handled it.
Correct.
And on that same thing, what about tenant caused problems?
Correct.
Yeah,
we are, all of our staff, all of our specialists, our subcontractors are all trained that if it's potentially caused by the tenant, we get pictures, we get comments, and that we
get some nasty pictures.
We get some nasty pictures. I'm not going to share any pictures, those pictures with anybody, but yes.
Well, I mean, what are some of those common things? I mean, there's a couple that pop in my head, but
clogged toilets, clogged sewer lines.
In our lease, they're not allowed to use flushable wipes. I don't care if they say flushable or not.
Correct.
They're not allowed to use them. And if they use them, and we get pictures of them getting pulled out with all the other wonderful stuff that comes out with them.
Yeah, it's not cupcakes and rainbows in there either. So.
And some other things I think of is like, we had somebody, my window's broken. Well, how did it broke? Well, I don't know how it broke.
Yeah.
They're responsible.
Correct.
If they're in there, they're responsible because it's never, I don't know who did it, or whatever. But on the tenant side, we also have insurance programs to help cover some of that. So if something does happen like that and it's an accident, the one that pops in my head is a boyfriend girlfriend lived together. The girlfriend kicked the boyfriend out, and he came back and kicked the door in. And now it's an unsecured thing. We had to run out there. Yep. We had to secure the building, and but the tenant's insurance picked up that bill. Right. So sort of a win-win on all aspects. But cool.
Yeah, we're careful with it, and but we're fair. I would say we're fair.
I think we try to be.
We try to be. Yeah. And we have mistakenly back-charged tenants, and I met with them face to face one time. Yeah, you're absolutely right, 100% right, and credited the tenant. And
we had that incident with the garage door, and it was like it clearly seemed like tenant damage, but after the explanation,
And then I did a little homework and looked at the history, and that was it. So we try to be fair, and but it's again. I say this all the time: it's threading a needle, right? Like it really is threading a needle between. What's right for the property owner and what's right for the tenant, and so it's a battle every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then again, we're talking about tenant damages. It's the same thing on turns, right? On the vacant properties, when a property goes vacant, and then we're trying to get it back on the market. We have a very we feel like we do very thorough evaluations, and then we are very careful about making sure that there's certain things that are obvious tenant damage and certain things that are just the owner needs to do this. And we go by the Indiana state law in terms of depreciation on paint and carpet and flooring and things like that, and we do a calculation, and it's a percentage based, and it's fair. And we had some issues earlier in the year. We corrected it, and I think it's been going pretty well. I don't think we've had a lot of issues ever since.
And I'm going to explain that a little more because maybe some people don't realize, like, there's a expectancy life in the rental world and with case law in other words, if you had this, and I can't remember all of it off the top of my head, so I'm just going to make up some stuff, but you'll get the point. So let's say carpet is 5 years. Mm-hmm. So basically, case law says every 5 years that carpet needs to be replaced, and it was replaced 4 years ago, and a tenant spills something, stains something, you cannot charge them for the full replacement costs.
Nope.
Per se. So there's a depreciated cost, to that. And now there's exceptions to it, and it depends. And maybe in that case it's unusable, but wear and tear is another thing. People don't realize what wear and tear is. This is wear and tear. Correct. So having little scuff marks and things like that on a property, that is normal wear and tear. Correct. You cannot charge a tenant, for Correct. That. And that's sometimes a tough thing for an owner to understand. If the carpet's 10 years old and now it's in bad shape and it's stained and everything, they want to go charge the tenant.
Can't do that.
No court's going to allow that to happen. And we don't end up usually we can work this out because we're fair, but when we do end up in court, we know exactly how these judges look at things, exactly what documentation needs to be presented, and we have a really good idea of what they're going to award us.
Correct.
And it's a constantly changing thing, but we try to avoid that because we end up in court. There's more costs for the owner. There's more, all that's much easier to do it the way we know is going to end up in court, or the result of what court would have anyways.
And I think, you could speak to this, but I could just from a down the road minds are, I'm just not involved in depth in the court. I put some values in there. But
other than we need more explanation.
Correct,
of this.
Right. But since we kind of made these changes, it's been very minimal, pushback. Right. It's been a very minimal pushback, and I haven't heard. We had a couple instances where things didn't go well in court. We made some changes, and I just haven't. I haven't heard about it. And I also haven't gotten. We haven't gotten a lot of. We're not arguing with tenants all the time when they move out. It's the math works, and this is what it is, and we take photographic evidence. And I think to this place's, kudos to this place because we win because we are fair, right?
And people don't realize is you get a reputation in court.
Correct.
So we're going in front of the same judges week after week and things like that. And if they see that we're fair, they're less likely to dig in very deep. They're like, okay, these guys have reputation for, being fair and, all that, where the opposite is true. I know landlords that they go in and they'll nickel and dime. They'll go through everything. They'll throw stuff out. And we don't want that reputation. We want to go in there. We want to treat people fairly. We want to be, I think we're still aggressive in that aspect. If it's wrong, they damage it. We will aggressively go after these people. But we have to treat people fairly,
absolutely,
and what the law says,
absolutely.
So absolutely.
That is we are looking at all times to make sure that the tenant, if it's obvious damage, no matter if it's on a turn or a maintenance request, the tenants are held accountable when necessary.
So, when we talk about turns, and for those that don't understand, turns is what we call the time when one tenant moves out and we're getting the property ready for the next tenant or whatever. It's just a term we use in the industry if you're not familiar with it. But we've tried this in the past. It didn't work, and we still get pushback from it. Is allowing owners to do partial work. Right. Mm-hmm. So in other words, they're like, okay, you do the carpet and the furnace and this and that. And we're gonna come in and we're gonna paint and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. Why don't we allow that? And basically, for those that don't know, our policy basically is. We have no problem if you want to go do it yourself, hire another contractor. We don't care. Right. That's fine. Maybe your brother-in-law's in the business and you want that's cool. But what we won't do is he does part of it, we do part of it, or they do part of it. Talk a little bit about
the scheduling. First and foremost, the complication of the scheduling is it's not worth it.
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare.
It's an absolute nightmare.
It's a nightmare. When's your sub going to be out of there so that we can get in and do our part? When are you actually going to be done so that we can coordinate with our leasing team to get it leased?
And keep in mind, we're doing thousands and thousands of work orders and hundreds of turns a year.
Correct.
And our schedule is pretty tight. So if your brother-in-law didn't get to painting this weekend and we had a schedule for Monday to get back in there to finish, that destroys our schedule.
Correct.
Absolute nightmare.
Absolute nightmare. Yeah. So that's first and foremost. Second, we on our bids that we put together, we do have some itemized pricing on it. Paint is this, and cleaning. Our most common things are hauling away tenant belongings and painting and cleaning and carpet cleaning, and then miscellaneous repairs. Right.
Sure.
None of those are to be. That is a collective entire price. So if we put $5 on there for a light bulb, and somebody calls me and says, "Hey, can you come and do all my replace those 5 light bulbs for $25?" No. My answer is no. We'll do that when we're coming in there to do everything else. It's just not efficient for us. Yep. It's just not an efficient thing. So there's that. The other ones is, access. We need to get access to roughly 700 front doors right now. Keys, coordination, all of that. If somebody else has their contractors come in and out, I can't tell you how many times somebody's walked away with keys in their pocket that were supposed to be left in the lockbox. We've driven an hour to go do some work that somebody took their keys the day before, and then we can't get back in. Just there's just too much that could go wrong, that always does go wrong,
Yep.
and then we end up having one of our technicians waste a half a day to try to do something that, to be honest,
It was
we're
a
just
problem
trying
that
to
didn't
do
need
it
to be
nice.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just trying to be accommodate, and it just doesn't work. It just makes everyone's life miserable.
Yeah, and the other thing I think of is we have a property standard that every owner is
Correct.
given to, and if I don't care if your contractor does it or we do it or whatever, that property standard has to be met.
Correct.
It's pretty basic,
Yeah.
but it's things need to work, things need to be
Right.
safe, smoke CO2 detectors by code, things like that. But so we give that to everybody, to do. And the problems that we have sometimes is when we've had in the past when we're combining it is who's doing
Correct.
what. Oh, I said I was going to do this and this and this,
Right.
but not that which go with those items,
Correct.
and it was creating massive communication
Correct.
issues of what was the expectation.
Correct.
So when it's all in-house, it's simple.
Right.
It's our expectation that the property standards will be met. If it's all your guys, just bring it to us
Correct.
back when those property standards are met, and if there's no question of who's doing
Correct.
what. So we're not doing it because we don't want to work with people
Right.
or anything like that. It's caused more problems than it's solved.
And
So,
more angry conversations with owners, right?
Yeah.
And more callbacks, and it's just not. It is not a relationship builder, and it's just not worth it. And then the other thing I would say is just that every construction project that's ever existed in the history of history has had a punch list. Everyone.
Yep.
It doesn't exist, right? So you get to the end of the project, we had our list, they had their list, it's done, and then you get to the end and somebody walks through and says, well, what about this? It's like, who's doing that,
Yep.
right? And I'll tell you what, we do, we punch out our own properties, and if we miss something on the original evaluation or while we're there, that's another example of we eat it, we do it,
Right.
we just get it done, right? That's all there is to it. We should have, you missed there's one screen that is not working, or this window's not open, or whatever it is, right?
Sure.
We fix it, and it's at no additional cost to our
Yep.
to our owner, because we did the turn, we own it, and we do it. What happens if we're splitting the work? Well,
Yeah.
you're supposed to check that. So,
and some of those things people don't think of, like windows not opening. That can be a major safety. If it's in a bedroom
Correct.
and the only access they have out because the windows are painted shut is the door, that's a major problem, and it's a safety issue, and
Right.
that has to be, has to happen.
So yeah, it is it's just not a good way to develop a relationship with somebody
Right.
that you need to have a relationship for a long time. You need to have a relationship with these owners for a long time, and it just doesn't go well.
All right. So, another big question, we said we weren't going to talk about it because we don't want to be updated, or it's going to be outdated as quickly as it is, but we can give some generalities here and stuff and we're trying to work with owners to help budget, and we're even, we talked about doing, what we've noticed is certain areas get more work orders that we're putting in the average number of work orders by zip code,
Right.
because these older homes are having things. But let's talk about turns again. And again,
Sure.
turns is the time between, one tenant moving out, next tenant moving in. What is our average turn? I think we figured it out the other day.
Yeah,
So-
our average turn is about $5,000, right? $4,000 to $5,000, I think, is what we figured out.
And let me jump in right away before
Yeah.
people's jaws drop. Now that includes on the low end probably $1,000.
$1,000.
Yeah,
$1,000 to $2,000. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and that doesn't necessarily mean the owner's paying for it because it
Correct.
might be coming out of tenant deposit, things like that. But all the way up to, I mean, we've had $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 projects,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah.
we did is how many turns did we do?
Correct.
What was the total
Correct.
revenue and divided those
Yeah,
two.
right.
And that's how we came up
Simple
with the
math. Yeah,
average.
that's what I'm capable of.
But I would say quite a bit of them are in that 1,000 to 3,000 range,
Correct.
you know, things like that. Maybe you're replacing carpet, maybe you have to repaint, you know, maybe,
Right.
you know, things
Correct.
like that.
Correct.
But, you know, so,
That's a good number I should get, is the average amount of money that is the owner required and average amount of money that we're charging tenants.
Yeah.
That would be a good metric to have, right? Because
Yeah.
out of the 5,000, how much are we, what's our average on charging back to tenants, right? That's
yeah, and the thing in our industry with averages is that things really throw it off. I get it. Well, what's your average market time?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, or your average turn time. So the time it goes vacant to the time you
Yeah.
have a new tenant
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
that varies so much.
Yeah, incredibly.
So when you look at it, maybe it says it's, 5 weeks or something like that, but it's because you have ones that are 3-4 month construction projects that are sitting off of there. And then you have ones that are, 3 days and it's back on the market,
Yeah.
And it's like, so how is that really an average,
no.
And it's sort of similar with what you're talking about, is we have ones that, it's all tenant damage and I have other ones that are all owners,
Correct.
so, but I mean, it's probably still valuable information, what we're trying to do is we hate having owners have sticker shock.
Correct.
We want to help them budget.
Correct.
And help them understand, it's not, okay, I get, $1,500 a month. My mortgage is 12. I'm making $300 a month. No, it's
you're
not,
No.
So, what is it going to cost for maintenance? And people would say, 3 to 5%. Yeah. In some areas, is it newer construction? Was it built in the 80s? Was it built turn of the century?
Mm-hmm.
Is it in Gary or Maryville where they have known sewer issues?
Correct.
There's things like that we're finding the patterns ourselves.
We are.
And, we'll hopefully be able to put that data out here,
Yeah.
maybe end of 2024, 2025, something like that, where people can, start looking at it, especially when they're looking for potential other investment deals
Correct.
as well. And knowing that is a high dollar, maintenance area, just, again, it's averages, but it's pretty legit. I mean, you
is.
see that at LaPorte, Michigan City, a lot of these older homes,
Correct.
things like that. As we've worked on them, we know what those older homes are.
I spent years out in Michigan City in those beautiful old houses when they were new. They're maintenance.
And my wife wants to buy one. She's like, let's buy one of them. I'm like, you are out of your mind, man. I've done enough of those old houses to realize nothing is standard. Nothing fits. Nothing works.
And then you also have the knob and tube wiring,
Yeah.
and that's one of those situations where, electricity's off to half of the house. What do? Well, you end up having to rewire most of the house sometimes. On occasion, you have to. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And so you need to know that on the front end when you're considering buying it.
Yeah. So hopefully we can get some more proactive information out to owners. And I know you and I have been talking and working on some of that stuff to help people budget for some of those things.
Even for us, it's an investor's mindset first.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I wouldn't want to buy. If somebody was providing me with that information, I would find it valuable. So we have data. We might as well collect it and share it.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a tremendous amount of data. So it's trying to find the patterns. Is this valuable or is this just noise? But
You sit through a lot of noise to find something valuable.
Yeah, exactly.